the point is, you don't need to figure out everything on your own. There's so many people out there who are more successful than you that you can learn from. And then there's so many people out there that will help you on your journey. So use other people's talents and skills and work together to create something bigger than just yourself, because you'll be so much stronger as a team. And by doing that, you can also help other people as well.
The following is a conversation I recently had with Dan Good. Dan is a saxophonist DJ currently based in LA who is the world's most followed wedding saxophone DJ. And as soon as you check out his Instagram at Dan Good Official, that's Goode, you're going to immediately see why. Now, Dan's musical prolific output does not stop there, as he's also sporting 5 million plus streams as an EDM artist. Check out his work at Real Daniel Chase on Instagram to learn more about that there. Now, throughout this conversation, Dan and I talk about musical projects, the difference between the music scene in the US versus the UK, how Dan built a 6-figure music business from scratch in less than a year after relocating from the UK to the US, and the journey about how that all happened there. And overall, just Dan's best tips for musicians who want to maximize their value and their productivity. This conversation was not only inspirational, but also a ton of fun. So if you're someone who loves great music and loves a good story, then this is an episode that you will definitely not want to miss. My name is Allison Legendre, and this is the Music Work Podcast. Please do enjoy. All right, how are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I thought we'd do something a little different in this podcast episode. I thought probably the best way for people to understand how cool you are as a musician. I know they already got the intro on you, but why don't we take a quick look at some of your music to get everyone up to speed on what you do?
Absolutely. Sounds like fun.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Let's dive in here. So I was just scrolling through your Instagram. You got like 50K followers on there is crazy, and like 100K on the other one. But I came across this one. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what you do here. I'd love to hear more about it.
Sweet. Yeah, so this is like a combination of all of the best moments of 2023 that were really, really fun. So this wedding specifically was an Asian wedding that I did not too long ago. And the crowd was just so much fun. This one was another wedding that I did last year, where everyone had the light sticks and stuff. That was really cool. This one is a wedding in Wales in the UK. So I got my editor to kind of edit together all the best moments throughout the year, which were really fun. This is Thief by UK, which that's obviously like a classic song that all the saxophonists are playing. He actually reshared that video, which was cool.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and that's the same song at a wedding in San Diego. And then this was like a cool kind of like example of me playing along to, I think that was like Indian music, which was really fun at another wedding in the UK. This is another one in the UK where I'm playing kind of like classic English, classic house, which I love doing.
A lot of cool events, a lot of weddings. And it seems like you mentioned there some places were some of those UK weddings and some of them in the US. Okay, tell us about that. Are you traveling a lot then, or you have events booked in across the globe then?
So I've been mainly performing in the UK for the past 8-9 years, and then over the past year is when I kind of made the move to Los Angeles. So last year I was flying back and forth a lot, had a lot of flights. It was kind of monthly. I was flying back and forth between the UK and LA. And then this year I've actually made the move permanently. So I'm basically stuck in the country now for the next year. So, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely cool to have that experience of being able to play in two very different cultures. And I started in the UK at 18. So I've been doing this for 10 years full time now.
Wow.
And I think that I feel like the UK was kind of just my learning ground. And then when I moved to LA, I was able to apply all that knowledge that I accumulated during that time, and apply it to weddings in Los Angeles and surrounding counties that, gives me a different perspective on performing to perhaps people who've been raised in the States. And I'm seeing it from like a fresh perspective. Um, and it's definitely been an interesting learning experience to perform in different cultures, and not just in the UK and the States, but also all around Europe as well, and different countries.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love how, the content really does say it all, exactly what it is that you're bringing to events, like the high energy, the vibes, and you're
Yeah.
in demand in different places, even when you can't travel. But you mentioned that like you feel some differences in the culture and the experience performing at events in the UK versus LA. I'm curious, what are some of those things that stick out to you?
Yeah. So one of the things which I love about LA weddings and like American weddings is the duration of them is typically a lot shorter,
Okay.
which is great because it just means you just bring more energy to the duration of the
Right.
event. In the UK, I'm used to doing weddings starting at midday and finishing at midnight or 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Oh.
So I'm performing for like 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours. Um, and obviously that's a lot of energy. So that's
Mhm.
kind of what I was raised on, in a
Right.
sense. And so coming to the States, you're able to perform for a lot of a shorter duration, and that means you can just bring more energy to it. Obviously the music is different in the States compared to the UK as well. In the UK, people love like classic house, like UK house, and then we have like drum and bass, dubstep, garage, which dubstep is obviously known in the States, but like drum and bass, garage, classic house are less popular. It's more like EDM,
Hmm.
in the States, and dubstep as well. And you guys probably have never heard of garage. so, so yeah, so that's kind of a UK thing. And then in the UK, we also do a lot of like reggae, and like we call it bashment, Afro beats. Like there's a lot of like of that as well. So like Sean Paul, for example, would be a good example of that, which is less popular here that I've noticed. So I think it's been really useful to get that wide encompassing
Mhm.
variety of different genres. And then obviously as a producer myself, performing EDM in the States, I love doing that. Because I'm not really able to do that in the UK, and I haven't really been able to do that. And obviously that's the music that I love and produce. But in the UK, people don't really listen to EDM as much.
Hmm. Interesting. I was like nodding my head for some of that, but yeah, the garage, I didn't know that was a style or different things like that. So
Garage.
I
Yeah.
that's interesting. There's different. I wouldn't have expected there's different styles of music in the two different cultures. I always thought they're more similar. But yeah, hey, if
Mhm.
the length duration is shorter here, then you're like already built up your endurance to bring all that energy for shorter events here. So that's perfect. I'm
Oh yeah.
curious about like because I'm going to show you something else here, and you
Mhm.
mentioned a style that was from the UK. I wonder if this is a UK event. You can tell me. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to show you this one. Tell us about what you were doing.
But yeah, so that was in the States.
Oh, this is
Um, yeah, yeah,
that's all right.
yeah. So that's like an outdoor event. That was a party for a very successful like doctor at his private estate. It was like a $20 million mansion that he owns. I think it
Wow.
was like in the valley. And yeah, this event was really cool. It was one of the very few events where I was booked to just play sax. So typically I'm doing sax and DJ.
Right.
Um, so this one I was able to just focus on sax. And I think like when I moved to LA, obviously I was like brand new on the scene. I
Hmm.
didn't really have too many connections. I literally, decided I'm gonna go to LA for 3 months and meet people and stuff. So that was obviously before I started gigging. But when I started to do the first gigs, I was just trying to make connections and network as much as possible and take as many events as I could to build up that network. So I was doing a few gigs like just on sax. I was performing at clubs and venues around LA, which was really fun, doing nightclubs and restaurants and stuff, as well as obviously weddings. So for
Hmm.
this event in specific, I was playing sax only. And then we had this awesome doomback player called Mark, who's obviously really great, really fun.
Right.
And then I was performing with a DJ called DJ Micah G, and he had a awesome DJ setup with like all of these moving heads and like I think over 30 uplights, and he had like smoke machine, and the the energy of his setup and his performance was really great, and that inspired me to adjust my setup in the States.
Hmm.
So I then incorporated all the similar like lighting effects, and recently, I've upgraded my setup to include 32 uplights. I've got cold spark machines, four of those, and then I have like a tool grade fog machine as well, which does like the dancing on a cloud effect. um in addition to like the moving heads, and that's like a light show that I do. So very similar to what Micah had in that setup. So that was really cool.
Right. So I love that you were inspired being hired for that event, and then you
Mhm.
took what you learned from that environment and used it to up your own offer. Because I know that's a big part of what you do now is bringing a whole bunch of these entertainment pieces together in one place, not just the saxophone, but also the uplighting, creating those cool effects for the holistic experience. So no, that's awesome. So when was that? I think you mentioned that was one of your first LA events. Then
Mhm.
when did you do that private
Yeah, so
party?
that was like last year. So
Okay.
basically, in the last year, I've gone from like literally like within about 365 days or less. Um, I've gone from having, no equipment, really no connections, to having like, I think at this point, like 40 grand worth of like equipment, the full show I can do full production on weddings, with probably up to about 400 or 500 people. So I really like built that up from ground zero. Um, Obviously, I will say that, I've been doing very similar stuff in the UK. So
Right.
with regards to lighting, I had festival grade lights in the UK as well. But this DJ Micah guy definitely inspired me to take it to the next level by adding like additional effects as well. So like the cold sparks, the dancing on a cloud, um, yeah, those things. And also like he had a CO2 cannon, which is pretty fun, like blasting the CO2 gun at the crowd.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. All the bells and whistles. Okay. Well, first of all, that's incredible. So like 1 year and you've completely like reestablished yourself in a new area. I know
Yep.
that, you're booking five-figure events at all these cool parties, weddings and events, and a six-figure, multi-six-figure musician. I was like, that's crazy. Like, how did you approach that? How did you get established so quickly in a new area? Like, I know there's probably a ton there, but what was your approach?
Yeah, so it was a variety of things. Obviously, I'm taking like all the experience that I had. So 8 or 9 years of like full time experience in the industry gave me a good like head start. But it's definitely like a humbling experience when you move to a new country where you don't know anyone and the scene's like a little bit different. And one of the things which definitely helped was reaching out to Tyler, who's obviously on Music Work Pro.
Mhm.
And it's just so funny that, Tyler is my United States twin. We're like literally the same height. We look like very similar. We could be brothers. Um, and I reached out to Tyler and I was like, hey, like we do exactly the same thing. Um, let's link up. I'm going to be coming to LA. Let me help you with your events. So I went to like 5 to 10 of Tyler's gigs. And I was just like, I'll help you out. Like, let me know what you need. I'll roadie for you. I'll film for you. Because I also have like a professional video camera setup,
Mhm.
with like a stabilizer and everything. And so I think that idea of like finding someone who's already, where you want to be, who's doing what you want to be doing, in the area that you want to be doing it, and helping them out and not asking anything in return, is an amazing strategy for building connections. And yeah, Tyler obviously already has the connections and the clientele. So Tyler is able to refer me for events that he can't do, and that's win-win for everyone. It's win-win for the clients, obviously, because they get someone who's very very similar style to Tyler. Tyler, gets to refer like one of his friends. And I feel like building that collaborative uh, group of fellow artists is invaluable. So it's like me, Tyler, Moses, Adam, and my friend Ben. And then, we've got a keyboard player called Nalu, and we all kind of just help each other out with, gigs and events. So I'd say that was one of the things that really helped to immediately break into the luxury wedding market, even though I'm
Mm-hmm.
new on the scene in LA. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, in addition to that, it's just like, obviously, I have my Instagram following built up. I have my reviews. It's over 190 reviews, just on one website. So it's over 200 reviews, like in total, that, I'm able to show people. I have all this like promotional content that I've been creating over the years. And then in addition to that, just being able to like network as much as possible when I moved here and take on a bunch of events, which I wouldn't normally do in the UK. I wouldn't normally perform at clubs and restaurants in the UK because I'm kind of beyond that level, because I'm just doing luxury high-end weddings. But because, I was new on the scene, I was like, I just wanted to network with as many people as possible. And that proved to be really fruitful as well. And like, give me cool content to post that was more localized.
That's incredible. So there's so many good lessons in there that I think anyone listening who might find themselves in a similar situation. I know I've relocated before, and
Mm,
as a musician, especially when you build up your, whole career in one location, figuring out how to start from scratch, but still like expedite things as much as possible because you are legit and like have experience can be tricky. So there's so many good lessons there about how you got connected to musicians. You found community and a group
yep.
of guys that were helping each other out, and you just continue to keep rocking on together. So many good lessons there. That's super inspiring because it's definitely uncommon to see such massive growth so quickly. And I know there's so many other cool components of what you do that we're going to be getting into, but one component of that is what you briefly touched on there. You mentioned that you were as you were, helping out Tyler and
Mm,
getting connected, that you were a
yeah.
video guy for him. And I've noticed that
Hmm.
you're really good at this. So when it
Thank
comes to
you.
like the production quality in general,
Right.
so I was
Yeah.
wondering, I have one other video I want to show you.
Hmm.
I want
Hmm.
to take a look at together here. And it's a great
Cool.
example of you just making like a super cool, like glamorous, like music video. I'm like, what? How does he do that? Maybe you can speak to this one. I'm going to play it for us here. One sec.
Cool. Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, how do you make such a cool video?
So that's actually my wife Julia on the front and the right. Um,
No way.
yeah. So she's a dancer, and she was doing like dance classes with the choreographer who's called Elza.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, hey, like obviously, you do all these sax covers, which I've been posting on, YouTube and Spotify and TikTok. Why don't you turn it into like a dance collaboration? And we did that on TikTok as well. So we like did just me and my wife and one of her friends, and we did this show in like, well, it wasn't really a show; it was like a cover, in Beverly Hills. And
Mm-hmm.
we did it on Rodeo Drive, which was really cool. And we had like, the security guard came up to us and was like, hey, you're not allowed to be filming here. And we were like, oh, like, sorry. But then he saw that there was like a crowd of like kids and their parents who were watching us.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you know what, like I'll let you guys carry on. And actually he let us like continue for another hour. And these kids with their parents, they were all watching us, and we actually posted that as part of the video, like right at the end of the video, which is really cool. So that was like quite successful, and it gained like a little bit of traction, you know, on social media. And we were like, oh, okay, why don't we turn it into a professional music video?
Right.
So we choreographed a dance, and
Mm-hmm.
we hired out a music studio, and we did like 4 rehearsals for it. And then, yeah, we filmed it in the music studio, and I found like a really solid videographer to film that. So I didn't film that one with my own team. That was like an external videographer. But
Mm-hmm.
typically, at every single event that I'm doing, I have my own videographer that I'm bringing to the event, who's also like a roadie, but he's mainly focusing on video.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I've been doing that for a very, very long time. So I, invested like, I think it was about 5 grand into a really nice camera and a really nice lens, which is the same setup that I've been using for like 6 years, 5 or 6 years. And it looks amazing. And I've
Mm-hmm.
taught multiple people to do videography. And I've learned a lot about it along the way, and I'm still learning. But I think being able to differentiate yourself from the competition by providing really high quality video content
Mm-hmm.
is something that is really nice to do. It's not essential by any means, but just
Mm-hmm.
having good quality video content is super important. And you can shoot good quality content on an iPhone as long as you have like a flash, especially if you're doing like evening stuff. But if you have a professional camera, then you can also upsell that to clients as well. So you can say, hey, like I can, my team can create a professionally edited wedding video for you, and you can charge anywhere from $750 to like 2 grand plus, depending on the quality of that video. So that's a cool upsell to do as well.
This is so interesting. So I didn't realize, I mean, I had a suspicion looking at your content. It does look very, very professional, but I didn't realize that you actually were bringing like camera equipment with you to events. So
Oh yeah,
that's
every event.
very interesting. So when
Mhm.
you make it as a, an add-on for clients, as it were, are you doing like a full out wedding video for them too, or just kind of more like the musical aspects of it? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, so we offer like fully edited wedding videos where it's really down to them. Depends how much,
Hmm.
of the day they want us to film, but we can
Right.
really do like the full on, preparations. We could do ceremony, cocktail hour, and then obviously the evening dancing, or we can just do like kind of more of a wedding video that's tailored to the entertainment. So like, shots where I'm playing and shots of the guests mingling around and stuff like that. And then of course the party in the evening. So it's really down to them whether they want it to be more entertainment focused or like just a general wedding video.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of people by the time that they book me, they've already booked their videographer. But in the case that
Hmm.
they haven't, that's something that we can offer. And what we also offer is we provide them not only like content on the professional video camera, but we also offer content on a phone. Um, so, I have an iPhone 15 Pro Max. It's the latest one. We have like a little stabilizer for that as well. And then we have like a little flash that we put on the top, which makes the quality of the video really, really good. Even at night, even when it's like low light, it still looks amazing because you got that flash on the top that's always on during video.
Hmm.
And then we just provide all of our clients with a Dropbox, and we're like, here's all the videos from the night. You can post whatever you want on social media. That's absolutely free. We don't charge for that. And we actually offer free content creation. So obviously you get like content creators nowadays that'll charge, anywhere from 500 to 2 grand plus for a wedding. And we basically do that for free. So we provide them with a free edited reel of their entire day. And that's just because obviously I'm a luxury artist. I'm charging luxury prices, and this is just something that we do because we're going to be doing it anyway. We're going to be editing a reel and posting it on social media. So why not give the client something as well? So we'll typically like edit the reel for the client slightly different to how we edit my video that I'm going to end up posting. So we'll have more
Hmm.
shots of the bride and groom. We'll have more shots of like the guests and stuff like that. So it'll be kind of like two slightly different edits that we'll do, but I offer that as well.
Oh my gosh. I keep like, whenever I think I know everything that you do, there's always something
Yeah,
unexpected that comes up.
I do a lot. Yeah, but it takes a team to do that. You
Right.
know, there's no way that I could be turning up to events, playing sax, DJing, getting my professional video camera, you know, shooting
Right.
on a phone. Like, of course, I don't do that. I typically bring, you know, at least two assistants with me.
Yeah. Well, managing a team is yet another skill, and getting the mechanics of that all operational. And that's kind of the pattern I'm seeing here is like you're, not only really talented artist, but also doing video, also,
Hmm.
knows how to manage a team, and also knows how to like do the content, and, have these creative ideas for add-ons that are going to be valuable to clients. And
Yeah.
I think one thing that we haven't uncovered yet. I'll show what they'll be. This will be the last one. I'm having
Mhm.
fun. Hopefully, other people are too.
Yeah.
But one thing we haven't uncovered about you yet is you're also a brilliant producer. So I want to like
Thank
show,
you.
or like you're writing music. I just want
Hmm.
to know what's going on here. I'm going to show you the video, and you can talk to us a little bit about your process, because I know you have an Instagram account, Real Dan Chase, that has like over
Daniel.
100K followers. You
Yeah.
have, what was the number again? You have a lot of streams on Spotify,
Five
whatever it
million.
was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there it was. Okay, anyways, tell us about this song right here, because it's so legit.
So this is in London, as you can see. And that's one of the vocalists on my some of my tracks, Natalie, who's also got the surname Good, which is just a crazy coincidence, but not related. So yeah, obviously the Daniel Chase stuff is like a completely different vibe. That's like
Hmm.
EDM,
Right.
um, and yeah, you know, it's a different aesthetic. You know, it's more kind of like DJ producer vibes. Um, and I've been doing that since 2017 as Daniel Chase, but I've actually been producing music since I was around 13. So around about 15 years I've been producing. Um, and I kind of started dabbling in DJing around that time as well. Um, so the production side of things is, you know, my way of kind of getting that creative energy out somehow outside of weddings, and
Hmm.
being able to also work with different vocalists and, you know, producers and studio engineers and stuff to create music that's radio ready. And yeah, so that's been really fun, and I'm still, you know, actively working on that. I actually have a track coming out summer this year called Good Time, which should be really, really fun. And it's just such feel good vibes. It's with an LA based singer songwriter called Chloe Caroline, and she's super, you know, popular and successful. She has like 115K followers on Instagram, and she's got a bunch of streams as well. And she and I wrote the track together along with another singer songwriter called Devin, and that track we're making a music video for it, which is going to feature a bunch of dancers as well and pyrotechnics, and we're going to rent out like a vintage car and drive it around Beverly Hills. So that should be super fun. I'm really excited for that. And also like we're going to choreograph a dance for that. And then we're going to be like um hopefully posting that dance on TikTok. And the idea is we're going to create like a, you know, like a TikTok dance type thing. So it should be really fun. It's like a side project. But obviously the Daniel Chase thing has become quite successful, and is something that, you know, I'm still actively pursuing.
Okay. I love that. And yes, sorry, for everyone listening, I didn't say it right before. Real Daniel Chase, not
That's it.
Dan,
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
Instagram account. Yeah. But no, that is really brilliant, because it sounds like you are, because I wasn't sure how this music was being created, if it was in collaboration, if you were writing it, just producing, but it sounds like you do this as sort of passion project to work with other artists. Do you find that it works? How does this complement what you do when it comes to the wedding event space, if at all? Like,
Mhm.
tell me how you think about that.
Yeah, so just touching back on like my role in the production stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
um I typically writing the lyrics with the vocalists, writing the lyrics together, we're writing the
Hmm.
melodies together, and then producing everything from start to finish, mixing, mastering. So all of that is done mostly by me. Obviously, I do also believe in like working with other people to an extent. So
Hmm.
I've definitely worked with like other singer songwriters, mixing engineers, mastering engineers, all that kind of stuff. But the majority of it is the whole production is kind of tied together by myself, and then the
With your
vocalist
vision.
is
Yeah.
doing the and we write again like the lyrics and everything together, so it's really fun. And in terms of how it ties in with the weddings, I think it's just, especially in the States, people love EDM. So to be able to say like, I actually produce EDM, and I have, the 5 million streams, definitely is like a, I guess, clout for clients. It shows
Hmm.
that, I have some credibility in that scene as well. And it differentiates myself from people who just do weddings, because there is a bit of a stigma, I think, especially like around wedding DJs who only do weddings. It's like, oh, they're going to play like cheesy music, they're going to be playing, ABBA and like Motown and all this, 70s stuff. And I think when you do something outside of weddings, when you do production, and or even if you're just an artist in the sense that you write your own music, I think that can
Hmm.
definitely lend some credibility, and show people, not just with words, but actually show people like, hey, I don't just do weddings, I do a bunch of other stuff as well. And so I
Hmm.
can bring that cool vibe to your wedding, and I'm not just going to be playing cheesy wedding music because that's all I know. I
Hmm.
actually, can play like tons of EDM and pop music, because that's actually what I produce, dance music, stuff like that. So I think it definitely helps, and sets you apart from the competition. But that's obviously not to say that people who just do weddings have any less credibility. I think there's also something to be said equally for people who've gone all in on weddings and who are just super experienced and super pro at that. I think at the end of the day, certain clients just want, standard wedding music, and certain clients want, something outside of that, and they want someone who's maybe more of a artist outside of just doing weddings. So I think it's great to have both. And ultimately, the most important thing is just making sure that you're doing whatever the client wants. So
Hmm.
if the client wants cheesy wedding music, that's great, you can do that. If the client wants you to play EDM and dance and pop and switch it up and do some more like cool like club style music, you can do that as well.
All that. I think that the lesson is that when you like dig into your identity as an artist, it's almost like you're going to attract the people who also resonate with that. And it makes sense to have credibility of like being, current with your music, if you're literally helping create current music. So that's really cool. I bet that your clients have like this different level of appreciation for what you do when they do, are specifically attracted to the music that you make. So that's, thanks for speaking to that. Cause I know that that sometimes gets a lot of musicians stuck about, what do I do with my original music? How do I fit this into my world? And I think you put that really really beautifully as a solution there, because you do have the two separate Instagram accounts, right?
Yeah.
And they're both thriving, which is incredible. Like, I don't know how you have time for all of it, but I think they work really complementary together.
Well, I will say that like the Daniel Chase thing, especially in the past year or so, has taken a backseat. I've definitely been focusing more on the weddings lately, especially
Hmm.
because I've moved to a new country and I have to build up a new business, and there's been a lot of investment into that. So the Daniel Chase stuff has taken definitely a backseat, although I'm still working on it. And like I said, I've got a new track coming out, but. Um, I've been building up the Daniel Chase thing since 2017. So,
Hmm.
that's been quite a while. And then what you said about having separate Instagram accounts is also super important,
Mm.
because you don't want to confuse your clients by having, pictures of you wearing like a hoodie and like ripped jeans and stuff, and then pictures of you in a suit. They're like, well, is he going to turn up to my wedding like in a hoodie? Because we don't want that. So I think it's very
Right.
important to differentiate that to people and just be like,
Mhm.
hey, you know, I'm not going to be turning up to your wedding in a hoodie. Like I do, the DJ producer thing, but my focus for weddings is obviously is the weddings, and so there is some crossover in terms of the music, but it's important to, I think, definitely separate your Instagram accounts, because people get like, you know they get confused about, should we post like educational content and like stuff from weddings and like personal stuff all on one Instagram. I would say no. I'd say definitely like split it up, because, and I think you mentioned this in um one of your videos on Instagram, right? There was like a,
Mhm.
was it like a violinist or something, and she had some educational content, and the moment she split those up, right, she became way more like popular, because people like
Mhm.
understand, oh, this is like educational, oh, this is like personal stuff, or oh, this is like wedding. So I see it as like a
Mhm.
portfolio that you can present to the client of like, this is what I do in this particular sphere, but I also do these other things, which is cool for them to check out if they want to.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're echoing that, because it's been a discovery process, like in our community, figuring out, okay, what do we do about this, and it has been the consensus, like that it's important to have clarity in your offer when it comes to an Instagram account that you want to function for getting you booked for performances. So I'm glad that you concur with that
Yeah.
analysis. But it's the thing about this, for those who are listening. Um, you might be looking at Dan and like, well, he has like, nearly 50K followers and nearly 100 on the other account. But like, of course, it's working well for him. But like, the truth is, like, when you have a dialed in like Instagram, you think of it as your portfolio. You don't necessarily need to have a ton of followers for you to still look really legit. So
Yeah.
it's more about the quality over the quantity, and the followers will come, but keep focused on the quality, and just thinking of it as a portfolio. I know for myself, I definitely don't have a lot of followers on Instagram, but I see the same principle at work.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think like follow account, is just one very small piece of the puzzle, and like
Right.
it's absolutely like quality of content over anything else, in my opinion. Like
Hmm.
I think in a lot of things quantity is really important, but I think when it comes to weddings, I think the quality is like quintessential.
Hmm.
If you have questionable quality stuff on your Instagram, it's really gonna degrade your overall like presentation. And I think like people, like, there's a lot of like conflicting advice, like just post as much as you can, post everything all the time, and I would disagree with that and say like, you definitely want to portray the best possible image to clients and show people like, hey, like this is what I can do, and you want to paint yourself in the best possible light. So I think like, having a bunch of followers is great, but nowadays it's like not as important as just having really great quality content, and obviously posting as much as you can, using that quality content, but having like a very high level of standards when you are posting stuff.
Amen. And people, this is coming from the world's most followed wedding and saxophone DJ. So if it's true for him, it's true for all of us. So yeah, quality over quantity for sure. So with that said, we've touched on a lot of different things here, but we haven't dove in. I wish I could talk to you all day, but let's find
Yeah.
find some direction in what else we can dive into
Hmm.
here. Do you mind sharing, because we've talked about how you were in the UK and now you're in LA, and you've done all of these things in music. Do you mind just like sharing briefly just the key events in your music life? I know you started really young too, which is also why you've been able to amass this reputation
Yeah.
at the speed you have. But with that said, do you mind giving us the highlight reel of when it comes to your journey of life and music?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely not been, a super speedy process. I think people might look at like, oh, you moved to LA last year and, you're already getting the 5-figure bookings and be like, well, that's like crazy. But the thing is that it's been a very, very long, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that people don't see. There's so many years of experience in the industry. And I'd say, like, I started playing music when I was like 4 or 5, like just playing recorder, in school. And then I picked up the sax at 9. So I've been playing sax for like 20 years now. And so there's a lot of experience there. And then at 13, I started, dabbling in music production, and started taking music like really, really seriously, fairly young, and did my first corporate event at 13. So I was performing on the street at 12, and we have like this like Dutch festival, because I used to live in the Netherlands, called Queen's Day. So I used to play on the street, and the first time I ever played, in public was on the street. And that day I ended up making like, I think it was like 250 euros or something at the age of 12. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. People just kept throwing money in the case. And I was like, wow. And then I did it again the next year. And the next year at the age of 13, I was getting like, that same day, someone asked me to like perform on this like big stage in front of like hundreds of people during that festival. So I was like, okay, cool. And I had my first like on stage performance there. And then because I was performing on the street, I also, someone came up to me and was like, can you perform at our corporate event? And I was like, sure. And they were like, okay, how much would you want? And I spoke to my sax teacher, and he was like, ask for 350. And I was like, 350, like that sounds like a lot, for a 13-year-old kid.
Right.
Bearing in mind this is like, 15 years ago, that was a lot of money. And I was like, okay. And they were like, yep, cool, we'll do it. And I was like, whoa, like mind blown. So that, like, from the start was definitely for me very like life changing in terms of the way that I saw the money side of things. And it was like, okay, I'm worth a lot, and I should charge a lot. And that's definitely stuck with me. Like, don't undercut yourself, don't undersell yourself. If you provide a skill that's like valuable and unique, you should be charging like good money for that. So I did my first gig at 13, like at that corporate event. And then I was also being paid to perform at like churches in the Netherlands as well as performing in like a local jazz group. And we performed for like the Queen's birthday party at the British ambassador's house in the Netherlands, which was really cool. And then I performed, I think I was 14. I performed at an event called the Hague Model United Nations, which is in the Netherlands as well. That was like 8,000 people with my school big band. And I was doing like it was Mission Impossible we were playing. I did the solo to Mission Impossible, which was like tricky because it's in 5/4. It's not in 4/4. So that definitely stuck with me. And I did that
Right.
2 years in a row. And then after that, I went to a boarding school in the UK. So I moved from the Netherlands to the UK, performed in a boarding school. Studied in a boarding school, and I also studied music production there. And that's when I really got into DJing, and I was DJing at like the school parties and stuff like that, and producing music and releasing music. And I released like a few albums under like a different name, and I made loads of like really great connections. One of my friends was like he won the Young Jazz Musician Award, the first ever Young Jazz Musician Award in the UK. So I was surrounded by super talented people, musical prodigies who were coming to the school from like Asia and like all over the world. And then when I finished school, and at school I won like the award for the music production award and stuff like that. And I recorded my first album as well. So I was the only student that I was aware of to actually like get a band together and release like a full-fledged 13 track like jazz album at the age of 18, which I fully like, orchestrated, arranged, composed, like recorded, and released at 18 in the school of Chetham's. I don't think they ever found out because I'm not even sure if it was like legal to do that. But I just used the facilities and recorded it and put it out. Um, and that definitely helped me when I was starting off. At 18, I moved to
Hmm.
London. Didn't know anyone, didn't have any connections, so I already moved from like the Netherlands, like building up, a bit of a scene there, to the UK. I was in Manchester studying, and then I moved to London, and then in London, I had to start from ground zero again. You know,
Hmm.
and then having the album and having like studied at the school and everything definitely helped to propel myself into getting like my first gigs. And the first gigs were definitely not high paid ones because
Hmm.
I was brand new on the scene. um, but someone suggested to me, why don't you incorporate the DJing and the sax together? And like when I heard that, I just laughed it off. I was like, that's such a weird idea, like no one would do that. But I started, I tried it out at an event, and it just so happened that the first event I ever did that was for someone who was on this TV show called The Apprentice. I don't know if you have it in the States. Um,
Hmm.
but so she was on there, and she was pretty well known. So she left me a review, which really helped for me to get tons more like higher paying gigs. And so at the start of my career, the first 4 or 5 years, I was just reinvesting all the money I was making. I was buying more equipment, building my setup. And so it got to this stage where like within about 3 years, I had this mega like DJ setup with, festival grade speakers and festival grade lights. And I was doing, the videography thing. Um, and so that helped me to build up more and more reviews and more content, um, and really set myself apart from like the competition at the time. um, so yeah, the first like 7-8 years of my career was just then doing weddings and doing more and more luxury events. And I also performed in a Jewish band that was performing at like the Ritz Carlton, the Landmark, the Roundhouse, like all of these big London venues. And then obviously I moved to LA, kind of like last year officially. And yeah, here I am. So hopefully that just about covers the journey.
Yeah. What I love about a few of the stories that you tied into there is that you just like see something and you just like start it or just make it happen. And you also have a knack for pulling people together and making creative projects come to life. And you're not afraid of a fresh start to make it happen too. And I know one of your, secret skill sets, or again, one of them is being able to build a team and like scale a business by, having these different offers. But part of that has to do with like being able to build a team. So can you speak a little bit to where that's led you to now? And again, I think about like the story that you shared about your jazz group and
Hmm.
making an album, and how
Yeah.
you just like you were the only one to pull a band together. So with that is the theme. Can you speak to where you are now when it comes to working with people? What are some tips you have when it comes to building a team, and what have been some key players that have been really useful for you when it comes to the business aspect and the offerings that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So the band thing, I actually had a band when I was I think I started like my first band when I was like 10.
Hmm.
And of course that was just, kids playing around that didn't really go anywhere. But then at I think
Right.
it was 14, I made a band which we actually did like gain some traction, and we were actually performing at, not huge, shows or anything like that, but we were performing mainly at like churches um, around the Netherlands, which was pretty cool. And then, of course, in Cheatham School of Music, that's when I pulled together the band where we recorded the full album, and that was great. And so I guess
Hmm.
being able to like bring together lots of different talents, and create something bigger than just yourself is something
Hmm.
which I love to do, because I feel like as one person, there's only really so much you can do. And
Hmm.
there's this story of Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife, who he was in prison for like doing an action. You know, obviously he's supporting the movement, and one of the supporters of the movement called up his wife and said, like, "Hey, how's things going?" Because she kind of had to take over for a bit, and she was constantly being pulled away from this conversation by like needing to take care of the kids and needing to, like finish making food and all this. And the guy said, hold on, don't you have someone to help you out with all of this? And she was like, no, we couldn't do that, that would be selfish, and I think there's like an ego in trying to do
Mm.
everything by yourself, and but it's coming from a good place. um but he was like, I'm going to get you help right now. I'm going to bring like 3 assistants to your house and they're going to take care of everything, because he didn't want her or Martin Luther King to be focusing on, menial stuff. He wanted them to be focusing on the things that really mattered, not
Mm.
whether there's milk in the fridge, you know? So for me, I think it's super important to focus on always doing the most high value task that you can. And I'm a big believer in like 80-20. So, 20% of the work that you put in creates 80% of the results. And if you're spending time on, doing the menial stuff, like not even, doing your own emails and social media, but like just cooking food and cleaning the house and all this kind of stuff and like driving to the supermarket, like all of that stuff takes so much time. It's so time consuming, let alone trying to run a business, let alone trying to, if you have like a 9 to 5 job, which thankfully I have never had in my life, but there are people out there obviously trying to do the music business and have a 9 to 5 job. And it's like,
Hmm.
in addition to that, they're also like cooking their own food and like cleaning the house. And like, it's like, I definitely could not do that myself. There just isn't enough time in the day. So for me, it's been super important to delegate as much as possible whenever I can, in order to focus on the most important things and in order to focus on being able to like give your clients the best possible experience. Because if you're doing all of this other stuff, you're not going to be able to give them your full attention.
Mm. I love a lot of so many things of what you said there. The story um, about Martin Luther uh, King Jr. So
Yep.
perfectly described exactly the situation. It's not just business things, it's also life things. And you've applied that to your own situation as well, because where your time goes in a day, we all have the same amount of time, and recognizing what the high leverage things are and what the menial things are, both in business and in life, is so important to get rid of them. Like, it sounds silly, but I talk to people about this too. Like, one of the most consuming things that I'm glad you mentioned it is like figuring out food. Like, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many steps that revolve around it. Like, oh, you gotta think about what to eat and then go to the grocery store and then make
Oh,
the food. And then it's just like, it takes so much time. And
yeah.
like, I actually love cooking, but like, I gotta like put limits on myself to like, when's it fun time and when's it not. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
I order groceries and I'm like, it's such a
Yes.
time saver. Like, things like
Yes.
that anyone can do
Mm-hmm.
to save time. Really, that's, there's no business and life problems. It's all just the same thing because you
Yeah.
are the one who needs to show up to each of those areas of your life. So I'm glad you touched on that, because that's so important.
And on that note, real quick, this is like super non-connected to weddings, but I, in the UK, I had like a personal chef that I was using for several years, um, which was great, but the cost of labor in the UK is so much lower than in the States. So in the
Hmm.
States, you'd be paying like $50 an hour or something, and at that point, it's like difficult to justify that expense. However,
Hmm.
I recently started using like meal prep services. So I use this thing called Cook Unity, and
Mm.
it's amazing. They have like 500 or 1,000 different like meal options, and they're all like pretty healthy. And you can choose whatever you want on there, and it just gets delivered to your door, and you just stick it in the microwave or the oven, and that's so time consuming. I do not cook ever anymore. The most like food prep I do is just making like a super green smoothie.
Hmm.
So definitely recommend like meal prep services. Absolute game changer. The one I use is Cook Unity. I have no affiliation with them, but I'm just throwing that one out there in case it's useful for people. But I do have a referral link, so if anyone if anyone wants to get like $50 off, they can reach out.
I'll hit you up. That's awesome. No, I'm glad you mentioned it because yeah, I've looked into it and in my area there's not as much, but I know that in LA I've heard a few different ones that people are
Right.
like obsessed about. So
Mm.
there's
Yeah.
options when you're in those more dense areas. But yeah, little hacks like that go a
Yep.
long way to giving you your time back. And like I've realized the same thing when it comes to operating my music business too. It's just like recognizing what are your areas of genius. Like obviously music's going to be one of them for us and most people listening here, but outside of that, like you're really good at like creatively coming up with like offers and like adding more value to what you do to maximize what you're able to provide and charge, which is hugely valuable, right? Like the returns on that will just keep coming every time you do it. So it makes sense for you to focus on things like that in addition to the music. Like for myself, like in the same way, I when it comes to keeping up with like little details and like inboxes, I'm not the best person for that, so I have someone to help, and like they're a way better fit.
Yep.
So it's about finding people, when you're working with people, it's about finding the right fit. It definitely comes with its own challenges working with people, but it can be extremely rewarding and give you so much more leverage. So I'm glad you could speak to that a little bit, so thanks for that.
Yeah, and like just a quick side note, like we haven't even touched on like we've talked about like meal prep and like food basically, but I mean there's way more to, running a music business than just that. So, I'll just quickly mention that, when I go to gigs, I have several assistants to help me at the gigs themselves. I have a full-time assistant in the UK called Liam, who's like my right-hand guy. I've been working with him for several years. He's awesome. And he does everything for me from like social media to emails to, to being my roadie at gigs, to video and content creation. And then I also have like a full-time email assistant and a full-time web developer. As well, and then we have a full-time SEO like expert as well. So we're hiring 4 people currently full-time, and then my wife works full-time in the company too. So there's a team of like at least 5 people involved. I think that's 5 or 6
Mhm.
in everything that we're doing at the moment.
Wow, thank you for popping the hood for us there, because I know for there's musicians across the spectrum listening to this episode, and of course it's not the you find someone to hire when there's pain. That's the best way I've heard it and how I've experienced it too. Is like if you're doing something and like until it's so repetitive it's painful, that's the time to hire someone, and obviously there needs to be like the cash flow to support it. So these things happen sequentially, but thank you for sharing the behind the scenes of what you currently have under operation. It sounds like you have an awesome team on your back. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more we were going to
Yeah,
talk
I
about
know.
too,
Yeah.
but this has been, I know we're coming up on time here. So how
Yep.
about we just wrap it up?
Hmm.
I'm curious, you can answer this question or you can answer a different question. We can take it any which way. But if you could speak back into your own life when you were like 13 getting started, what would you want to say to that younger musician you? Or for anyone else out there, what are some best advice or mindset things to think about that you would speak to someone at that level?
That is a fantastic question, and I love that question because
I'm glad it made sense.
yeah, no, absolutely. Like that
Okay,
is
great.
basically the best question you can ask anyone when it comes to like learning how to be successful.
Hmm.
And I would actually say like when you said, delegate when there's pain. I mean, I would say delegate just as soon as possible. Like,
Mm,
and if you don't really have the cash flow, like find someone who'll do it for cheap or for free. Like work with, your partner or like a friend or something. Like instead of giving them
mm,
money, give them something else, give them like equity in the company or whatever, but just start like
hmm,
delegating as soon as possible so you can keep focusing on what you're good at and invest in
mm,
yourself, because investing in yourself is the best investment you can make. Don't fall into the trap of like working a 9 to 5, working for someone else, helping out other people, even like being a member of like, and I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but like when you work for yourself, then you have the best chance of, your success, and you can, collaboratively employ other people and use other people's talents when they're better at something than you. And there's this story of, I think it's Henry Ford, and he was taken to court, and I think it was him. And he, was asked, like, they were taking him to court and basically saying like he's ignorant. It was some strange like claim, and he basically said, like, they were asking him all these like silly questions, like random trivia questions, and he said, like, look, I don't need to know the answer to these questions because I have a team of like 50 advisors who I can ask the answer to these questions, and they'll let me know straight away. So the point is, you don't need to figure out everything on your own. There's so many people out there who are better than you, more successful than you, that you can learn from. And then there's so many people out there that will help you on your journey. So use other people's like talents and skills and work together to create something bigger than just yourself. And like, kind of in that sense, like, drop your ego and stop trying to make it work on your own, because you'll be so much stronger as a team. And by doing that, you can also help other people as well. By us employing all these different people, like, we're helping them with their lives, and supporting them financially as well. So that would be my advice, would be like, invest in yourself first, and also like delegate as much as you can as soon as possible.
Amen. Dan, this has been like absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. I know that all of the listeners or people watching this episode are going to get so much from it. So we really appreciate you. The whole community appreciates you. Where can people connect with you? What were those Instagram handles one last time, or any other place that you'd like to connect with people?
Yeah, so it's Dan Good Official on Instagram, and then Real Daniel Chase is my other Instagram. Instagram is my main platform, but I'm also on TikTok. So yeah, you guys can find me there. And obviously, shout out to my man Tyler, who's on Music Work as well. He's got a masterclass coming up. I think is it tomorrow?
That's right.
Yeah. So shout out to
Yep.
him, because without Tyler, I would not be where I was today. Definitely recommend everyone to go check him out. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, Allison. Like, it's a real pleasure. And I love everything that you're doing in the community. It's super valuable, and you're helping like thousands of people. So hats off to you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, I think my camera battery just died. So
Amazing timing.
that was crazy. Yeah.